But anyway, so it's time to move on to the secret origins of wokeness. Now, there is quite a bit of information I've got here. We've not got that much time, so I'll try and go through it as quickly as possible. We've got this article that came out just last week talking about a Hollywood consultant admitting Glee started the wokeness epidemic.
I knew Hollywood would be responsible for this. I knew it.
It was obvious from the start, but it may not have come in the way that you expected it to, shall we say. So this article is very interesting. It's quite long, so I'll get through some of the important information. Where did cancel culture and wokeness come from? This is the question that consumes many conservative writers almost as much as the question of how to beat it, while others have pointed to the rise of postmodern critical theory in universities in the 80s or to the political correctness waves of the 90s. I believe these explanations only tell part of the story and leave a very important question unanswered. Why now? And why this generation?
See, that's a great point, because what they're describing there are the theoretical roots and the sort of political action of it, but why did it burst out into popular culture?
Yeah, the foundation had been laid, and this is going to try and explain to us why, as you say, it's exploded in this particular era. It is not possible to answer this question without talking about the influence of social media. Very important point, and specifically the social media used to propagate millennial fan culture, where social justice warriorism and cancel culture truly had their testing grounds. Personally, I devoted considerable space to the culture of Tumblr, that cesspit, the social media site that is equally responsible for the development of wokeness. In late September of 2017, a post appeared on Tumblr by a user calling herself 12 Clara, sounding like a combination between Jonathan Edwards and Enoch Powell by way of the girls' locker room. 12, quite good analogy there. 12 Clara issued the following jeremiad to her followers about certain events that took place in 2011. You'll have no idea. None of you understand the suffering we went through, the hell, the endless war. You come in here and you try to start the discourse, but you don't know how we already made these mistakes. We already had the discourse, and it's done now. It's over. It's all over, and you should let it stay dead, but you won't, and that's why we all hate you.
Okay.
I know. Can I just say, I hate this overwrought style of writing that Tumblr seemed to have encouraged. It's absolute cancer, but quite revealing of the mindset that these people are in. This person is like 7 years down the line from Glee, and they're still talking like they're a distraught 13-year-old. Later on, 12 Clara said of the phenomenon, it's not history, it's blood. Reading this, I know.
All right, 12 Clara, calm down.
Reading this, you might think 12 Clara was describing some horrible world historical event, a natural disaster, a plague, perhaps even a great mass outbreak of violence. You would be wrong. What she was actually describing was what it was like to spend time on Tumblr as a fan of the TV show Glee. This is the kind of attitudes that these people have towards the most throwaway pieces of media. This is
only throwaway to you, though. To these people, it was like Vietnam.
Well, yeah, that's the thing that we'll get into, is exactly why that was.
I never watched Glee. I mean, it's a singing and dancing show for teenage girls, right?
That's what it looked like to me. Yeah, that's why I avoided it as a teenage boy.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I avoided it.
I was busy watching cool things.
Yeah, like The Matrix and Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly. My dad showed me Pulp Fiction at 12 and I was never the same.
Yeah.
The above descriptions are of the so-called fan wars among fans of Glee in the early 2010s, written with the benefit of hindsight from a survivor.
Survivor.
Yeah, but right there we see the immediate parallels we can see with typical socialist leftist culture, with it's just one big civil war. It's an infight the whole time because nobody can agree on anything. We fought its wars until it was too late, until it was nothing but a distorted picture of a parody of reality, a cracked mirror in which our souls were sucked and encased in glass. You asked for history, there's no history, only rage and pain and regret. The image of Anonymous with a grey face and sunglasses telling you to kill yourself. That's pretty brutal, man. It's just a TV show. Come on.
The thing is, I believe it, because once you kind of step into a particular paradigm, which in this case is the paradigm of Glee is this or that, which is fighting, then I can see how it does become all-consuming. If that's all you're constantly on your phone or on your laptop or whatever, that's all you're talking about all
the
day.
Only thing that's occupying your headspace.
Exactly, and the only other points of reference are the other people having this conversation.
Yeah. You get off your phone, and the only thing you're thinking about for the rest of the day is how to come back at that guy who just threw a massive dunk at you.
Yeah, and if you're a teenage girl and you have literally nothing else to think about, then yeah, I can see them getting quite emotionally bound up in this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can tell how emotionally bound up they are in it with this. The void could not consume anything more. And the posts on it now, the social justice discourse that is just giant piles of steaming, unsifted, unrefined I'll agree with you there,
Yeah.
is from those who refused to learn from us. The history is here and it followed us and we can never escape it.
Okay, that sounds like a curse.
I know, it really
That's an
does.
amazing way of describing what's happening and the people who have been cursed by it.
Yeah. The author, Bill, what's his name? Just to give him some credit here, Bill Hurrell, goes on to describe the characters of the initial run of the series that these people got so caught up in.
Right.
Those founding members of the Glee Club are Rachel Berry, a blatantly stereotypical female Jewish theatre kid with 2 gay dads, Kurt Hummel, a flamingly gay and hilariously vicious male soprano who is frequently the object of bullying by the football team, Mercedes Jones, an obese black girl with oodles of stereotypical sass, Tina Cohen Chang, a stuttering and morose Asian goth girl whose distinguishing traits rapidly vanish as the series goes on, and Artie Abrams, a wheelchair-bound, bespectacled wiseacre. So you can immediately see how, in terms of the casting, they're absolutely ticking every single box on the diversity quotas, which might give you a little hint as to why.
Well, there's not a single straight white man there, is there?
I believe that this description that I got here, there is a straight white man, but apparently he's the guy who fails at everything. Because of course he does.
Of course he is, yeah.
Yeah. You have multiple Asian students, 1 black girl, a lesbian couple, a gay kid, a Jewish girl with gay parents, a disabled boy, a Jewish football player, and the lone straight white guy, Finn, who just happens to also be the character who consistently makes the most mistakes. In other words, from a critical theory perspective, everyone except Finn in the show is oppressed and or marginalized.
Well, Finn seems to be the absolute minority in this. Well, there are 3 black, 3 Jewish, loads of women, gays, lesbians, but
you're
1
being,
straight white guy.
But you're being normal about it, Carl.
Well, I'm being mathematical about it.
People on Tumblr are anything but normal.
That's true.
I'll tell you that. The absolute most consistent message that Glee drills into its viewers is that its protagonists are supposed to be at the bottom of the high school food chain. So there's the oppressed, they're all oppressed.
Yeah.
By the time the first New Directions class graduates, that's the name of the Glee Club, they are not only a decorated Glee Club, but most of their members are either members of the cheerleading squad or the football team or have had romantic relationships with members of said squad/team. In any real American high school, this would mark the New Directions as anything but social pariahs, and yet we are expected to believe they are marginalized because they like to sing. Honestly, the show never really justifies why they're supposed to be outcast, except with the occasional after-school special-style episode about subjects like homophobia or racism.
Right. Leftist indoctrination.
Yes. In other words, the oppression of the Glee Club is purely theoretical function of their identity markers, while the actual on-the-ground social reality they live in marks them as undoubted high school aristocracy.
See, like I said, I'd never watched Glee, but I assumed it was about a high school aristocracy of like the rich, cool kids who are doing musicals, whatever.
Who can just burst out into song in the middle of the corridors.
I assumed that it was about, like, the cool kids, not the oppressed kids.
Well, supposedly, one of their big songs was even one of the only original songs they did was about how they're all a bunch of losers. Doesn't sound like they're a bunch of losers.
No.
But, once again, it mimics the dynamics of the way that you can have someone like Ibram X. Kendi say, I'm an oppressed, marginalized person, while raking up 45 grand for every tiny little Zoom session he does. Glee was propagandizing wokeness before anyone knew what wokeness was. I don't think this was self-conscious, the author says. In fact, I think the show was originally meant to be a lot more self-aware, as the first season carries an implicit disdain for its protagonist.
Same here.
Yes, that utterly vanishes in the second season, where characters return to the screen almost completely rewritten. So basically, it sounds like the writers just ate up their own hype. They're just like, oh, everyone loves us. Well, we need to just give them more of everything they love instead of what maybe the original vision of the show was intended to be. I would assume that the show attracted an audience that's both far larger and far younger than its creators initially expected, and the company making it realize they could monetize it as a promotional vehicle for pop music and liberal social messaging far more easily than as a teenage black comedy with singing thrown in. The intersectional nature of the cast was almost certainly nothing more initially than a cynical play to make sure every potential customer who watched the show would have had their own Glee character to relate to. Which is basically, once again, we can see how intersectionality is becoming a massive multi-million-dollar business into and of itself.
But also how they fail to understand that it's really not the look of the character that you relate to, it's their behavior and personality.
Well, not if you're a Tumblrite.
Well,
yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And then he returns to 12 Clara's post. The Glee fandom is not history, it's blood. I still see it all over this website. The vague posts, the deactivated URLs. Where do you think the word problematic became popular? Where do you think the representational anger started? Glee was the hungry, gaping void that consumed us all. It said, watch us and find yourself. There is someone for everyone here. Santana is a lesbian, Kurt is gay, Brittany's bisexual, and Quinn, God knows what Quinn is. She's straight, but we have her say things like, you were singing to Finn and only Finn, right? I've no idea what that means. Yeah. And Artie's disabled. Mercedes is black and an outlet for body positivity. We are all oppressed by something, and we are different, and we are outcasts, and we are you. So this was inherently teaching people implicitly to view themselves as oppressed in some way.
And outcasts.
Yes.
And, yeah.
No matter how successful or popular you are in actual reality, you can still consider yourself as an oppressed class because of some aspect of your character that should be superficial.
Just to pause very quickly, I'm really impressed at the lucidity with which this 12 Clara is posting. Like this is someone who is deeply, deeply invested in the lore of what has happened here. They clearly have a great deal of knowledge on what's happened and are totally resentful about all of this.
They're the lone survivor from the war coming back to gift us with their curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, moreover, we go back to the author. Moreover, according to her, the representational anger, i.e. the obsessive policing of how minority groups are portrayed in every form of media, also began with Glee, which I think is pretty evident. Granted, this is one witness, but it is a witness who attracted an unprecedented 78,000 notes expressing agreement on Tumblr.
I assume a note is a share, right?
Yeah, and I assume that agreement on Tumblr is even rarer. Yeah. And lest you think I'm reading into it, Slate themselves did an interview with 12 Clara, whose real name is apparently Erin, where it turned out that since her time in the Glee fandom, she has become, what else, a consultant for the entertainment industry.
Literally like the scarred veteran with an eye patch over their face. Yeah.
You don't know, man.
Yeah, you weren't there.
But yeah, that seems pretty convincing proof of the existence of a pipeline from the dregs of Tumblr into Hollywood's boardroom. So every one of you, every single one of you who may be watching this, who back in the day just said, oh, it's just Tumblr, and never go further than Tumblr, now they're in charge of your entertainment. Now they're in charge of the media. How wrong you were. For shame.
Now they're the ones literally persuading the bigwigs in the entertainment industry what to do?
Yes.
Great.
No wonder everything is as it is right now. 12 Clara then moves on to explaining with honestly and very impressive eloquence how Glee provoked all these things. Namely, it didn't just represent every individual group on screen, it weaponized that representation, constantly enraged by the fact that their wish fulfillment wasn't being perfectly fulfilled on screen, and even more infuriated that other people had the goal to be okay with story decisions that felt like personal attacks. The Glee fandom transformed into a bellum hominum contra omnes. Don't know what that means. To fight that war, more than a mere personal desire and preference would be necessary to achieve victory. These things would have to be intellectualized. And so the Glee fandom cast about and found critical theory. And
I think that means a war of all against all.
Ah, that makes sense.
I'm not a Latin speaker though, so if
there's
wrong,
any corrections in the comments, I'm sure you will let us know whether we said it or not. So they found critical theory and absorbed its narcissistic message that basically enabled you to cry racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. at anything, because what they were really after was a way to demand that nothing ever happened on the show that didn't make them feel personally fulfilled. And now they've brought it into real life, and nothing can happen in real life that doesn't make them feel personally fulfilled. And we've got this last damning bit of evidence from 12 Clara. It was almost like the word problematic became the Bible of Glee. It was like this is your way to instantly prove somebody else wrong. Then people were instantly shut down. It was the be-all, end-all of an argument. I'm sure that most times anybody's ever used that word in history were probably during the days of Glee. It sort of infiltrated Tumblr vocabulary. When everybody left Glee and they went to their new fandoms, we all took that with us. Glee gave us all language to talk about the problems we were seeing in media that we may not have seen before, and probably, let's be honest, didn't exist. Yeah. I would say the sweet spot in age for Glee at that time was probably like 14 or 15 to early 20s. For a lot of people, this is the first time they were coming into contact with identity politics. And there's more to that particular article if you want to go read it yourself. You can find the link, but I think that is rather damning in terms of evidence. That would kind of explain to me the age of everyone would be just about right for them to start making waves in social media outside of Tumblr as well. The foundations have been laid. All of a sudden, this massive infighting in the fandom explodes it into the mainstream, and they take it everywhere they go with them.
And these people now are in their, late 20s to late 30s?
Starting to make waves in the industry of their own, like 12 Clara apparently did, very interestingly. And we can see what this has led to. We've not got much time left. Should I carry on with this? Or?
Yeah, we'll just finish it.
Okay, yeah, that's all right then. We can see how woke media has infected basically everything and the consequences and results of that. There's a bit more to all of these, but I'll just sort of skip over them. So Jessica Chastain recently did an all-female, ultra-progressive film called The 355 that bombed in theatres. It was all about, let me see here, very tiny women beating down huge, gigantic men with no effort. Check. Stupid male characters who fall for simple sexual tricks employed by women. Check. Male security guard getting beaten up for doing his job just to spike the patriarchy. Check. Would you like to know the box office?
Yeah.
$4.3 million on a projected $75 million budget.
Oof.
Just a little smidge off from making that budget back.
Yeah.
We can see other elements of wokeism within the media industry if we move along. This classic one from Lily Wachowski, if you scroll up, responding to Elon Musk saying, take the red pill, Ivanka Trump says, taken. Lily Wachowski, F the both of you. Acting like a petulant, spoilt child there, Lily.
Yeah.
If we move along, the Wachowskis went on a few years ago to confirm that The Matrix was a trans allegory all along in one of the greatest pieces of active retconning I have ever seen in my life.
I love Keanu Reeves' response to this, so I had no idea.
Yeah, I doubt they had any idea as
exactly,
well, Keanu. You weren't alone there. So they're saying, I'm glad that it's gotten out of the way. I'm glad that it has gotten out that was the original intention, Wachowski said. This was Lily again, adding the corporate world just wasn't ready for it. Sure. I love how meaningful these films are to trans people in the way that they come up to me and say these movies saved my life. I don't know how present transness was in the background of my brain as we were writing it, but it all came from the same sort of fire that I'm talking about. So once again, you've got another example of fans imprinting their own version of what's going on, maybe outside of the authorial intent.
Same with J.K. Rowling suddenly declaring every character to be gay.
Yes, and then getting cancelled off the back of it anyway. It didn't save you, did it, Joanne?
These characters weren't gay, were they, J.K.? You weren't thinking about that at all while you were writing it, but now...
Yep, and then as a result of everybody kind of knowing what was going to happen with the latest Matrix, I've not watched it, but if we move along, it bombed.
Oh yeah,
I've
seen it
massively.
I've got a video coming out on it probably next week.
Yes, which should be very interesting. I've not watched it. I don't know how woke it is. Can you give us a hint?
It's kind of beyond woke. It's not. There's no
beyond
point.
The realm.
It's not
of woke.
A story, right? It's not a story. It's a puzzle that is to be unpacked. And so don't watch it as if it's like, a piece of entertainment. What it is a cryptic message. And that's what I'm exploring in the video that I've done.
Should be very interesting, but
totally
it made a miserable $12 million in its first opening weekend, and I think overall now it's made $104 million total.
Yeah, it's about $100 million, and it cost nearly $200 million to make.
On like $150 to $200 million budget.
Let them rack up these L's,
Yep, exactly. So go woke, get broke. As always, if we move along, this applies literally in terms of the CW, who anyone who's familiar with the CW will know that their shows are very woke nowadays.
Yeah, it's a channel, isn't it? Or
it's a TV channel, you're correct,
network,
owned by Warner Brothers and Viacom CBS.
Yeah.
And they do shows like Batwoman, which I've not watched, but I have watched Mauler's excellent coverage of Batwoman, which is hilarious. You should go check that out. It had the famous trailer where Ruby Rose as Batwoman gets shown the Batman
a perfect
costume.
Suit. It will be when it fits a woman. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's wonderful. That's flopped, and it's flopped so badly. All of the CW shows have flopped so badly, they're going out of business, and Warner Brothers and Viacom are selling them.
That's hilarious. Who's going to buy that?
Who's gonna? I'll
We've got this failing network. Would you like to buy it? No.
Maybe Mauler and the EFAP gang.
Oh my god! Can
get
you
hold of
imagine
it.
if they raised the money to buy it? That would be.
I know.
hilarious.
And they just, do you want us to do anything with Batwoman? No, just leave it the exact same, please. Yeah, and then if we move along, everyone knows how Star Wars is going at the moment. Recently, there has been the Book of Boba Fett series, which I don't know exactly how woke it is, but this guy, Tamura Morrison, who was cast in the original prequel series as Jango Fett, the clone, the template for the clone army, has returned as Boba Fett. And you can see here, all these interviewers want to talk about is the fact that he's an indigenous actor.
Indigenous to where?
I think he's New Zealand, so he'd probably be like indigenous Maori, maybe.
Yeah, sure,
but who cares?
But this was surely made in California.
Yeah, probably.
Like, he's not indigenous to California. Oh, they're just generally indigenous. Well, does that mean that the French are indigenous as well, because they're indigenous to France?
That's a good
You
point.
know, the English indigenous because we're indigenous to England.
Well, everyone's indigenous to somewhere.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, like, you know, you've got the colonists in
most
America.
Americans, yeah,
You know,
actually.
but, so like we've got this indigenous thing. So anyone in the old world is indigenous, basically.
Yeah, but I think how weird must that be for him, where 20 years ago he's cast as this really cool character in a Star Wars film, and no one cares about where he's from, and then it's 20 years later he's playing a different character, and they all go, "Oh, so you're indigenous? Tell me about that."
Yeah.
Maybe I just want to talk about Star Wars. You know?
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
And even if the show itself isn't woke, what happens when you have wokeness prevailing through the whole thing? You end up with people running these shows who don't care about anything to do with the franchises they may come from, and you end up with hideous, awful S like this. If you go to the next bit, this is a clip. This is a still from the new Star Wars show, Book of Boba Fett. Yes. And this caption, "There's not an ounce of Star Wars in this image," is absolutely right.
Completely correct. That is... I would not have known that was Star Wars if you didn't tell me that was Star Wars.
Yep, everyone was shocked. I've seen everybody talking about it.
What are they doing?
For those of you listening, not watching, there's an image, presumably from Tatooine in Star Wars, where there's a bunch of like Mad Max-esque misfits standing
they look
around.
kind of like hipsters, to be honest.
Yeah, hipster misfits standing around next to their hover scooters, which have excessive amounts of mirrors, like they're all a bunch of space mods or something.
Yeah, they look like they're out of...
Quadrophenia.
Yeah, or Back to the Future or something.
Yeah.
Right.
It's ridiculous. So you end up with people in charge who don't understand the soul and essence of the product and the franchise that they're trying to translate for a modern audience. And they'll just throw anything at the wall and just be like, well, it's got the name on it that you like, so eat up, dumbass.
Yeah.
And then I'd also like to give a shout out, because Marvel has also been very, very bad for it recently. You should check out, if you scroll down, you can see the Critical Drinkers video on the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I watched one episode of and switched it off because I knew what was happening with it. Unbearably woke. You have scenes of people like Anthony Mackie's Falcon shouting at a US senator going, "You need to do better, Senator." Okay, and also...
I mean, that's obvious.
When they're talking about him being given the shield by Captain America, Bucky, the Winter Soldier, says to Falcon, "I never considered it what it meant, giving the shield to a black man."
Oh, my God.
I'm pretty sure, just as a little...
Just on the nose.
Maybe an idea that maybe Captain America in the universe thought, you're the best guy for the job and you're a friend of mine, and plus you're American, here you go.
But you're also black.
Yes. Oh no, I didn't realize. Oh no. So yeah, overall, that may be an idea of where this woke explosion came from in the past 10 or so years, and also just a reminder to everywhere you see it, everywhere you go, reject woke media.
If you want to see more from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to enjoy all of the premium content we have on the site, such as this free article by Josh reflecting on an important topic which is too spicy to discuss on YouTube. You can get access to all of our premium content with a bronze tier membership for just £5 a month. If you'd like to stay up to date with all of the content we're putting out on the site, you can follow Lotus Eaters on Getter at getter.com. You can also follow our individual writers and presenters, such as Josh here. Thank you, and goodbye.